die of gun violence in America than in any other industrialized country on earth.
In 2020, per capita murder rates were 40% higher in states won by Donald Trump than those won by Joe Biden.
And yet their theory of the Second Amendment is killing Americans. And we're going to have to get through their false notion of the Second Amendment in order to save human life. Thank you. I yield back.
Representative Cori Bush and also Jamie Raskin were leading this oversight and accountability hearing about gun violence. And we hear all the things that politicians always say about where gun violence happens. It's those minorities, it's those big cities, and they like to kill each other. It's nowhere else. Anyone else who has guns is just using it for hunting and self-defense. And boy, if they don't have it, this country is in trouble. Well, they had a little bit more reality for these folks. Let's watch more.
9 of the 10 states with the highest gun mortality rates, including my state of Missouri, are red states.
The states with the highest rates of firearm deaths are the ones with the weakest gun laws, and the states with the lowest levels of firearm deaths have the strongest gun laws. But they say that all of this chaos and destruction is just the necessary price we have to pay because of the Second Amendment. All those thousands of people gunned down at church and school, at the Walmart, in parks and grocery stores are just the human sacrifice we've decided to pay as a society for our Second Amendment. My colleague.
I love that he points these things out because again, we forget the people that have been murdered due to our rampant gun problem that we have in the country. So as we keep seeing this go down and actually some truth then gets pushed back on, I'm not sure why it took this long. Yes, I'm sure some before this have, but when facts start coming and begin to be spoken into the record here, maybe we can start to convince people to see what is actually right in front of their faces. This is the last excuse that many folks then have is also have this constitutional right to bear arms. Raskin went after that one as well to talk about the state of the way we do this with the right to bear arms. Watch more.
Our colleagues embrace what's called the insurrectionist theory of the Second Amendment. Our colleague, Mr. Gates, says the Second Amendment is, quote, about maintaining within the citizenry the ability to maintain an armed rebellion against the government if that becomes necessary. Well, this theory is completely debunked and destroyed by the text of the Constitution itself and by Supreme Court precedent. And yet their theory of the Second Amendment is killing Americans. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union and suppress insurrections and invasions. The Republican Guarantee Clause tells the U.S. Congress to guarantee a Republican form of government to the states and to protect them against domestic violence. There's 6 other provisions in the Constitution, including the Treason Clause, that debunk what they're saying.
I think Mr. Raskin points out the insurrection issues with this and also the way that there's supposed to be this rampant violence that's coming for the government. And again, as we're at this point, people are trying to collect as many guns as they can who, I guess, think they can recreate another January 6th. Didn't work out the first time, but that's why they've continued to keep that fire smoldering underneath, Jackson.
Well, typically crime is a result of poverty. More so than not, especially when it comes to petty crimes. When Republicans are always railing about crime that happens in big cities. Big cities, there's more people in them, so it's easy to look at those numbers. But as Cori Bush pointed out, she's a rep from St. Louis, where you and I are both from. Missouri is a very red state. There's a lot of poverty in St. Louis. That's why there's a lot of gun violence. Not to mention there's just guns all over the country. That's a Democratic-run city, though. So it's like the goalpost never moves. It's like the state's poor, and all of these issues that stem from poverty, more so than not, like people being in gang life, people committing armed robberies, stuff like that. If people were well-to-do, they wouldn't do these things. They have more opportunity, they wouldn't do these things. But that city or that township, that's ran by Democrats. But then the golden cities that they point to are like in the middle of rural Mississippi, a town full of like 500 people. But, look at what happened with Alex Murdaugh. You've seen that case all over the place. They from some small little Republican town where it's like, 100 people in the city. And look at all the mess that they doing. Crime and violence is a part of human nature. We're not all good. We're not all bad. There's a lot of nuance to it. So politicizing these issues is just a way for Republicans to not do anything about poverty or about people not having good education or good access to health care. It's just a way for them to blame everything on the Democrats while doing absolutely nothing themselves.
If they actually acknowledge the issues or actually look into the problems and the the origins and why these things happen, say from the crime or any of that type of stuff, they'd have to do something about it. If you learn about it and acknowledge that you learned about it, you'd have to do something. And doing something would be spending money on people that we've always said don't deserve it, that they're stealing from the government, they're sucking off the teat of America, and they're doing nothing as contributing to it. That would have to be flipped on its head. We have to actually see some type of equity and equality when it comes to how we're using these dollars and who they actually go to. The assumption is these folks don't deserve it. They don't give anything to this country. And if you push that since forever, you can't flip on it later and go, this is how we maybe lower our crime problem. It's just not going to come, because that's not how people get elected, especially on the Republican side. Let's keep that real.